Hi, I'm Yolanda and this is Speak On. I hope you're all good and thank you so much for joining me. The current theme is gender and we have some awesome guests from around the globe to discuss some really interesting topics. Today's subject has been widely discussed on social media and in the press following the recent murder of Sarah Everard here in London. It spurred millions of women to jump on social media and voice how concerns about our safety and the casual sexism that women face is, well, it's shit. But alas, there, amongst the people sharing their experiences, the phrase "not all men" began trending, where toxic waste men who were probs a bit, well, rapey, decided that although they weren't personally attacked or affected, chose to internalize it and make it about them. Maybe because they didn't like seeing what was reflected back at them, or maybe because the double standards and bullshit gender identity ideals we raise kids with create such an empathy gap between boys and girls at such a young age that unless men have a daughter or are reminded that they are related to at least one woman, they just don't give a fuck. Amidst all of this, a lone man called Jamie, and that is his real name, Jamie, decided to disturb my peace one night and complain about some content written about the murder. Not only did he confess that he didn't read the whole article, what a twat, he read one paragraph. He reminded me he had a mum. He also reminded me he had a sister and he knew some women. He also reassured me that he was not a sexual predator. He also decided to basically say, not all men, Yolanda, not all men. I stayed calm initially, but let's just say the interaction ended with me saying, you are creepy, fuck off, Jamie. Because guess what? Everything he did made him seem like a danger to women. And I know I'm paraphrasing wildly when I talk about it, but that's the gist. And I'm going to move on because I want to speak to my guests. I'm really excited about being here. Today, I'm joined by US stand-up comedian and writer Tavi, who is lucky enough that today she just met her new friend, me. I'm her new friend. And also model, makeup artist, hairstylist, and fellow Gobby Southerner, my friend Grace Gary, who I adopted last year as my friend. Now, ask Tavi, ask her, she can't get rid of me now.
No, we have the goodest interactions.
Exactly.
Very blessed and happy with
bet.
the situation.
Well, hey, besties, what's up?
Hey.
Hello, lovely to meet you.
Right, how is everyone doing? Tavi, like, what time is it for you now?
Oh, it's 10. It's 10 a.m.
Okay, not too bad.
I mean, it's early for me, but I wanted to be here.
Thank you.
I'm a noon sleeper. I work at night, like I'm a stand-up. So
yeah,
I am sleeping my days away and thriving in the evening.
Love it, like a vampire. I love it.
Getting it done.
And Grace, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I've been just running around today to getting some errands done. So that's been productive. And now I'm here chatting to you guys. So I'm very excited.
Oh, wicked. Well, yeah, thank you so much. And the reason I invited you both on is because the content you create, the things that you say, the things that Grace and I collectively moan about, highlight sexism in its various forms. And also you both make me laugh a lot. So let's get into it. I'm going to kick off with Tavi. So what is the first thing you think of when a man not all men's you? And what do you think about them?
Okay, if I hear someone saying not all men, I'm going to tell you, my first thought is, why are you here? Because 9 times out of 10, this is a female space, right? This is a women's space. And I don't need your input. If we're sharing our collective trauma, if we're talking about things that affect our community, why are you here? So I guess, yeah, why don't leave, go away, leave me alone, which is really all I've wanted from men my entire life. Leave me alone. But what I would think about a man who says not all men, it just screams, I'm a nice one. I'm one of the good ones. Look at me. And it's such a distraction that I have a way here. I'm a Libra. I have to think on both ends where I'm like, are you just ignorant, right? Where you're just like, I know I don't do it, so it can't be happening, kind of ignorant. Or are you intentionally derailing a conversation? Mm-hmm. Either way, I don't want to talk to you. So, I guess I don't address those men. I can't. They're lost. So
That is the best way to put it. That is really the best way to put it. They are lost, aren't they? And Grace, has anyone done this to you recently? Just because obviously you are here in London and everyone was talking about it like for so long.
Yeah, I luckily haven't been not all men on that subject. I feel like at this point, people who have me on Facebook and Instagram know that if they come with that, then I'm mostly going to be quite impolite to them. Or like maybe I will be polite to a certain extent and then I will just tell you to fuck off because I don't have time for it. Like, because I do believe in talking. And if like, you know, there's certain people that, like you said, are you just wasting my time or do you really not get it? Like, so if you really don't get it, I might try for a bit, depending what kind of mood I'm in. But if you are really just trying to wind me up, then there is no conversation to be had. But yeah, like I said, luckily I haven't really had that on my platform. But I did have someone sort of message me and sort of like be like, oh my God, I just didn't get it. And it's just like, and it was such a long sort of message that I just didn't have the emotional energy to sort of reply. And I was almost like, I was grateful for the fact that they'd sort of done their own learning and they'd like wanted to talk to me about it and stuff like that. But like at that time, I just did not have the energy to sort of be like, well done. Because I feel like when that happened, especially in London, because I believe you're a Londoner as well, like London born and bred, like I feel like as women have already avoided so much our whole lives. Like from a very young age, we're taught to avoid certain things, go certain places, move in a certain way. So it wasn't a shock, but it was still deeply, deeply upsetting. And then I think it brings back traumas where you've narrowly avoided things or your friends have narrowly avoided things. And it was a very exhausting sort of time. So I'm very grateful that I had only sort of positive interactions.
Yeah, definitely. I was lucky enough that online, it wasn't actually anyone bothering me online. This guy fully WhatsApped me. And I was like,
oh, wow, personal.
In my house. I'm like, look,
in my house.
Literally, like what you message me while I'm in my house. Like, this isn't the place for it. If you message me online on Beyonce's internet, I still wouldn't be happy about it. But to literally WhatsApp me while I'm sitting down in my Star Wars pajamas, just trying to live my life. That's why I literally indulged in maybe for about, it was 30 minutes too long, to be honest.
Yeah.
For about 30 minutes, because it was very much in that way. It was like, look, it could go either way here. Either he's trying to understand something, but it wasn't. It was just him asserting that it wasn't him. And I was like, I don't know why you're telling me. I don't care. I don't care what part of this scale of rapiness you live on.
Yeah, like,
but yeah.
I don't. It's not something to be like congratulated on. You just should not be. Like,
done for not
why are you telling me?
Really, I don't know.
This should be normal.
Literally, the baseline.
Like, you know what? I'm all right.
Yeah.
Like, no.
So
be like, why isn't he all right? And go do something about him. Don't be like, yes.
Exactly. And that's the issue and the fun stuff I had to deal with. Also came on a brilliant week when a guy that I know that is married from my hometown, I fully don't care who listens to this, like, and he hit on me. And I was like, but you're married, go away. And then he was like, this is why men kill themselves, because women are blah, blah. And I was like, no, if you do that, it's because you've got mental health issues. Me rejecting you because you're married and you've got kids is one thing, but I think he was upset because I also told him I also said I didn't like his face. But that's, again, I'm allowed to not like your face. If I think I was dating a guy at the time that looked like Captain America, why the fuck would I go to you? It was a wild week.
I feel like when you're married and you like come on to someone, you open yourself up to whatever insult that person chooses to give you, because don't try and make me your mistress. Are you mad?
Exactly. It's like, do I look like I've got time for that shit? Come on.
No.
So anyway, back to the topic. So there was so much conversation at the time. So Tavi, I don't know, did you see, because obviously it was huge here, was there much coverage like about it in the US? Because I mean, you've got your own shit going on.
Absolutely not coverage. I don't recall seeing much coverage of it at all. Mm-hmm. If you're asking me just in media out here, no. Yeah. However, I have friends in the UK. I am obsessed. I would move if I ever had money. I hate it here. And I'm just obsessed. I'm probably overly obsessed to the point of fetishization. Sorry, y'all, okay. But I love it. I love it all. Yeah. I love the worst bits. I'm a Love Island junkie. Don't even.
Amazing.
I'm a problem. So I heard about it because of that. I have mutuals on Twitter, and obviously, it gets around, but it was not something that we spoke about here in the U.S. There's always something going on here, so even if somebody did, it would have gotten buried.
Your diary is full.
Right. So I don't know a terrible amount about what happened, but I don't feel like I need to know something that happened, because if someone is attacked, that's what I know.
Yeah.
I know that they were attacked, and that's not supposed to be happening. And this idea that men want to absolve themselves of any relation to an event like that in a world where we know misogyny is reigning, violence against women is a problem. Why would you as a man sit in that space, in that conversation, and try to make it about yourself, about absolving yourself of guilt, instead of putting the focus back on the fact that there's a woman who was attacked and murdered? Did you say she was murdered?
Yeah, by a police officer as well, which is a bit mental.
Is that the time? Even if I was going to buy into this not all men stuff, which I don't, I'm a misandrist, shut up, never talk. But if I was going to buy into that narrative, now is not the time. Someone died, someone lost their lives, and you're taking this opportunity. Well, it wasn't me. Okay. And what? Is she alive now because you said that?
Such a good point. Yeah. And it was wild. It sparked off a few things, because so women went to basically hold a vigil, because it happened in a park in South London, and women went to go and hold a vigil, and the police were like, no protest, no gathering, even though people had gathered I think a week before to do something really fucking arbitrary and stupid.
And for Prince Philip after.
And literally Prince Philip died, and they were allowed to stand there and do the same thing they're trying to do for Sarah. And then because the police went and they were super heavy-handed, loads of women got hurt. It was wild. The police were like, do you know what? The police were out there acting like women were black people. It was wild. They just didn't give a fuck. And then a lot of people got an awakening that day. They're like, look how they treated us. And we were like, yeah, they do that to black people all the time. But there was a lot of awakening going on at once at that moment.
That was like not to say a positive, but in some ways it was, because it opened people's eyes. They're like, oh my God. It was like,
the police do this to people who are minding their own business.
Have you seen that ginger bird on the floor? How terrible. Very much that.
Yeah, so. Definitely. And so there was also, it's not just like men that were doing the not all men stuff. There were also women doing that as well. So Grace, if you saw a woman kill Davina McCall, and a few other people had said, oh, what about the boys? What do you think when a woman says not all men, and what do you think is going on there? And how do you, I don't know how to respond to that, but yeah.
I think it's multiple levels, because obviously this thing is always on multiple levels, because it's socialization, it's what you've experienced, it's what your friends have experienced, and what you've been exposed to as well. And I had a chat with my mum actually very recently, and we were just talking about something that was it, being tooted when you walk down the street. And she was like, back in the day we used to love that. Do you know what I mean? That was a little confidence boost. And I was like, yeah, but when I was growing up, that meant that someone might try and get you in their van. That wasn't a cheeky you look good today, love, and you walk away with a spring in your step. You're looking behind you to see if they're following you.
Yeah.
So it's so your experience is very, very different from mine. And we had a very interesting conversation. I bless her, she was genuinely shocked from the things that we grew up with and we were dealing with from such a young age, but it was so normalized. And it's not something we even thought to tell, because obviously people tell you don't get in someone's van, don't do it. So we've been told that, so obviously that happens, and now it's happening, so don't do it. Do you know what I mean? So okay, that's going with the narrative that we've been told, but I don't think our parents necessarily even knew how much that happened, on the walk home from school and things like that.
Yeah, that shit was wild.
Yeah, wild. And so when I'm telling her, she's just that's such a different experience. So I think it's just having conversations and being so when you say that, what is your experience of that? Because this is my experience, and these are the experiences of women of my generation frequently, not once in a blue moon, every day practically, and yeah, so that was very educational for both of us. And I think that's the problem. It's definitely a generational thing as well, and also willful ignorance, because they've mostly had things happen to them that then people wouldn't of, made a big deal out of, or, like, shh, because there was a lot of that, of shh, and then they have to reflect on that and then sort of like deal with that trauma. And it's so much easier to be like, it's just a little bit of love, you're being too sensitive. He's only having a laugh. Like, the boys will be boys, like, instead of being like, actually, like, this is unconsensual, and like really getting to the nitty gritty of it. So I think,
absolutely, that is it, isn't it? It's like that thing of I don't know many women that have done the not all men bit, like it's kind of like they were doing not all men light. It was like a version with less calories in. When they were saying it, they weren't kind of going for it in the same way. And when they were talking about it, I again asking about their experiences, and I don't think there's, and not to kind of, I don't know, be patronizing to them or anything else like that, but I think because, like you're saying, shit's so normalized, I don't think they've realized and really sat with the shit that's happened to them that's really actually dead fucked up. They just had no idea. Like, something told me and I was like, dude, what the fuck? That's like, that's insane.
That is not okay.
No, exactly. You could have gone to the police about this. It's like so wild, and everything else. And you brought up the phrase there, boys will be boys. Like, Tavi, what do you think about boys will be boys?
Oh my gosh. Boys will be what is expected of them. And I've always thought that, as much as we'll say, men, they're stupid, they can't focus on this, they can't do this, it's probably the single greatest con the patriarchy has ever pulled, is making us feel like men are incapable of growth or being better. No, there's a standard set for boys. They set a different standard for little girls. We live in a world where we put more responsibility, we put more demands on little girls that make them mature, make them self-aware very early in their lives. I was aware of myself at 5. Cross your legs. When you're in a dress, you sit with your legs closed. Don't do this, don't bend over this way. Make sure you have a shirt on. The second you start really protruding outward. These are things that make women aware of how they're being perceived and viewed and how they're interacting with other people, even when they're little girls, right? I can remember the first time I was shamed by my mother for my body. And I actually had to think about it. I said, is it possible to raise a girl without giving her some sense of shame, even by accident, because you're trying to protect her? I was in a 7-Eleven just sucking on a lollipop that I got from Candy. And my mother said, go sit in the car right now and zip up your jacket. And I was like, what did I do wrong? It turns out we get in the car, and of course my mother explains to me, she's like, I'm so sorry. Did not like the way that these men were looking at you. And I was probably 9 years old. So when I hear things like that, I reflect back onto my childhood. When you say stuff like boys will be boys, and it's like, yeah, but then we keep that going, and men will be men, and men have these needs, and men have these desires. It's like, no, we all are people. Okay. And little girls are taught very young, and little boys need to be taught very young as well, about respecting people's space, about respecting themselves. That's why I don't buy into that. And that's why I don't really side with the women who say that, well, not all men, and they try to put that out there. And I know where it comes from, at least for the women I've met. They're women that have children that are, boys, and their husband, and they want to be like, well, not all men, because I'm raising my sons. And it's like, that's beautiful that you're doing that, but the sons that you're raising are not the men that we're talking about. And I think that. So drawing that distinction right now is, again, a detraction. I don't know why they don't seem to understand that, but I can't allow the boys will be boys rhetoric. I don't. The boys will be what you allow them to be. That's it.
Absolutely. So spot on. And again, it's like, when I've heard people do the kind of not all men, etc., it is like, that's such a good point. It's mothers of sons, and it's like, yeah, cool, but we're not talking about your 7-year-old.
Yeah.
We're talking about guys that are out in the world doing these things now. And that doesn't, just because you're raising your child a particular way doesn't make any other behavior exculpatory. It's so kind of wild that people think that, and people try to jump to the defense of boys while holding girls hyper accountable for every single thing that happens. And you both touched on things that have happened to us as we have been growing up. And it's like, I am a small woman, and I've got big boobs and a small body, and that happened. I went to sleep when I was a teenager, and I woke up with a rack, and then I looked really young, and I had huge boobs. And like you're saying, then the guys were like, would bib their horns at me in my school uniform when I look 10 years younger and always have done through my entire life. So I looked like a baby with boobs, and there was still, and I had guys come up to me and ask me, are they real? I'm in a school uniform in a small town. What the fuck do you think this is? Beverly Hills fucking 90210. No one is paying for me to have a fucking boob job. But then that's the kind of shit you have to deal with. And then you kind of, like Grace touched on, you don't always say, because it's so normalized. It's like, who am I saying this for? What's anyone going to do about it for? Yeah.
A dude ID'd me once in a park.
Sorry?
I was like, I'm like 14 and you are a nonce. Like, because I was very bold with it. Like, I like playing with the fight, like, because I just felt aggression was the way to go. Yeah. Especially when I've got.
It is, but always be aggressive. Grace.
Yeah. Like, and I've definitely still got that fire in me, but like more so now, if I don't have to, I'll avoid it. But like back then I'd be like, come on then. And I was like, I'm 14, you're a nonce. And he'd be like, come on, give me your number. You're definitely not 14. And he wouldn't let me go. And I actually got my Oyster card, which is our travel card to get on the bus and the tube. And it was 16 and under. And I got it out. I was like, this is the only ID I have. And then he looked disgusted. And then he ran. He actually ran. But like, into the afternoon. And that was it.
But isn't that wild? Because you already said no.
Yeah, I already did that.
Yeah.
Why would you want to be like, come on? Yeah. Like, leave her alone. Like, and why wouldn't you, like, as a human being, for your ego, if you ain't that into it, find someone who's into you, babes. Like, you're gonna love it. She's gonna love it. It's gonna be a great time. Like, how sad for everyone involved. Part ways.
Absolutely.
Or have a conversation and like take time. Either or, like, you know.
Yeah. And I think we've touched on like a few of these different things, and these are circumstances that don't necessarily happen to men, so they don't know like the things that they do, and they don't know things to do because they're socialized to do them. Like we have been socialized for a long time to accept it, but just like literally time's up on that shit that's what time's up is, and that's kind of part of what the Me Too movement is, etc. So around this time, specifically here, Tavi, men were asking like for guides. So much like when Black Lives Matter and people are like, please educate me, even though everything's been said before, please educate me some more. Even though there are resources and stuff that are there, but men were asking for guides. So they were asking, what can they do to make women feel safer? What do they do that makes us feel uncomfortable? And there's a guy I know, sorry, I'm just throwing all the men under the bus today, but there's one guy and he has a radio show, and he often goes on his Facebook feed to curate content. So he'll ask questions and he's like drawing like wisdom of the crowd to build his shows. I do not like him, but I keep him on my Facebook friends. I hide him the rest of the time because truly the shit that is on his wall is just, it's journalistic content for me. It's seeing it's seeing what other people think outside of my echo chamber, as it were. It's a kind of a window into stuff that I don't want to be part of, but it's a window into something else. And so he actually posted all this stuff's going on, so I'd like to ask women, this is a space where you can say what you can do to feel safe. Now this motherfucker, right, he writes that down, and then so women that he knows, and he's a popular guy, so lots of people know him, they start adding in things that happen and things they would like to happen, and not going into, they weren't re-traumatizing themselves by going through experiences, but they were certainly adding suggestions. Then one of his misogynist fucking fuckwit friends, sorry I said fuck so many times this podcast, Abby's gonna have fun editing this, and then put some misogynist bullshit. And because he's a guy that I know, the reason I don't like him is because I know what he thinks and I know what he presents, and I know never the twain shall meet. So he, but emboldened by this misogynist, then starts attacking one of these women for the suggestions that he asked her for, after saying this is a safe space and you can post it. And I was like, I didn't join in because like truly I don't hang around these people. They aren't in my life for a reason. I haven't got time to explain all the reasons why he's shit. But it's just really annoyed me because I saw that actually replicated across the internet, because even as men are some men are reaching their hand out, they're also reaching their hand out, and the other one is there just to smack you on the back of your hand as you reach back too. So what kind of things are there that was just me ranting about that. I just wanted to say that out loud, how much I hate that man, and how ridiculous that situation is. And please don't do it again, anyone. But there are so many things that happen to women that men don't know, just like the things that happen within the LGBTQ community, things that happen to like Black people, people of color, that other people just don't know. Starting with Tari, what examples from the truly exhaustive list of shit men and boys do they need to cut the fuck out?
Oh, well, first, that exact shit that you just said, the setup. Stop pretending that you care or you want advice or you want to learn. It's ridiculous. And all of the people do that. Oh, well, how are white people supposed to be allies? Shut up. Shut up. It's a setup. I don't want to talk about it. Like you said, there's a whole internet, there's books, there's things. So stop doing that. Stop asking marginalized groups to educate you, not the responsibility. I know people hate hearing that, but it's the truth. I spent a large portion of my life growing up thinking that if I just facilitate conversation, things are going to change if I do that. And there are so few people. And the people who truly do want to learn will do the work on their own. They will do the work on their own. And then when you finally get around to that, you can have an actual conversation with someone who's taken that step. So that right off the bat, stop asking marginalized groups. I would also say being like, they should stop doing is discounting the experiences of marginalized groups. If someone does take the time out to educate you and to speak honestly with you about their experience, your one anecdote of when someone didn't do that thing does not invalidate a lifetime of struggle. Stop. It still happened to them, whether you saw it not happen or happen a different way to someone else. These are completely different situations. And I know that people try to make that seem like, well, yeah, because it's on an individual basis. And it's like, no, there are millions of Black people telling you the same thing. And you want to listen to like hundreds. There are like, let's look at the disparity here. That's what we're talking about. Is that sure, maybe not everything's drawn along these same lines, but listen, be open to, and don't invalidate anyone's experience on that level. So
absolutely. And any ones from the other, the list is so long, Grace. What other things can you add to it?
I think it really is like literally the nail on the head is the not all men thing, because it just grates on me so very deeply, because it just invalidates people's experiences, and it's not at all helpful. Because what are you trying to say? That you're a good boy? Like, I don't care. Like, if you're a good boy, carry on, carrying on, isn't it? Like, but we're worrying about the people that are doing the bad things. And if you are so good, find them and you have conversations with them about why you do not like why they do these things, because now you look like the bad guy, and try and undo all of their stuff so that we don't have to, or we don't have to encounter it. And that's it. Like,
yes, Grace, stop talking to us. Go talk to them. Go talk to the men who are making you look bad.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I feel. You're sitting here screaming at me, not all men. Go punch the dude in the face who's assaulting women. Like, go figure out what he's like. You should honestly be more mad. Like, if somebody came to me and was just like, Black women are doing all these I would be livid. I would be having conversations every day. I'd be like, what are y'all doing?
Yeah. But if gingers were going on a rampage, I'd want to know. Like, I'd be talking to the, you know what I mean? Talking to the people. Like, it's just ridiculous. You can't.
Like, why would you talk to the victims?
No.
Like, really go talk to the
experience while you do it. Like, it's just like, well, you could be having all these progressive conversations because you're so good.
Exactly. And I think there is that, like, one of the things that I find the most jarring in any of these conversations is when guys want to start with, when I became a dad, or I have a sister, I have a mum, and it's like, you don't have to be related to anyone to give a fuck that someone is getting hurt, or to not be a dick to them. Like, that is it. It's just someone's
also,
a person.
Does your sister like you? Does she like you? Does your sister like you? I don't know.
Exactly.
It means nothing to me. I have 5 uncles. I come from a big family. My mom has six brothers, but 5 we talk about.
Yeah.
She has 5 brothers that I was raised with. My family is extremely misogynistic, extremely homophobic. I don't talk to them. I cut my family off about 6 years ago. Don't go to family events, except for my mother. I love my mom. She's an angel. But the majority of my family I don't talk to. If one of my uncles got up there and was like, I have a niece, and I was like, yeah, and daughters, and you're still a piece of shit.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about? There are plenty of misogynistic men out here. I don't know. And I'm not gonna lump every person in who saw, but let's talk about the fact that like Jared from Subway had children, whole pedophile.
Yes, that is true.
It doesn't change a thing.
Yeah.
Like your relation to one thing, because people have a way of compartmentalizing these people and separating them. You're not one of them. You're not like them. Heck, I heard it as a Black child growing up. Well, you're not like the rest of them. Well, you proceed to be racist.
Yeah.
So this means nothing to me. You know what I mean? Except that maybe somewhere along the way you disrespected your sister and mom too.
Yeah.
That's all.
Absolutely. It's like I've made the point to a few people. It's like, oh yeah, guys, I went out with a whole ass racist for years. I didn't even know. He dropped that shit on me towards the end of our relationship. He still had sex with a Black woman. So you know, it doesn't change. It changed nothing. And when I found out, I was like, oh wow, that is tea.
But yeah, if you have daughters, tell me so I can go save your daughters. Like exactly. I have a daughter. Yeah, you shouldn't hand her over.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I think as well. Another thing that I see. And I saw this recently because it was around Meghan and Harry, which that is a podcast for another time, but around Meghan and Harry and all the nonsense around them two just trying to live their lives and earn money. And a guy, like my stepmom, posted something saying that she basically just said that I respect this woman because she's had a really hard time, and like, should we just not leave her alone? Just let her live her life, and let her have her baby and mind our business. And then a guy who it turns out is going out with one of her friends. I didn't know this at the time because I said some shit, right? And he put, well, I'd rather you put someone else there and someone I can respect. And I made the point, I was like, no, hun, no. You know, if he was in front of me, I would have moved my fingers right up to his lips and just squeezed them together, just because it was like, if you think it's healthy to decide who to respect and quantify respect, what do you do to the women you don't respect? And what do you allow to happen to them? That's the only thing that you need to think about. What do you allow to happen to that woman over there you feel you don't give a fuck about, compared to whoever it was he was bringing up? And I've seen other posts like that where they've got that NASA Blueberry, I think her name is, she is a young girl that wants to go to space. And then it was showing Kendall Jenner, and it's showing them against, like, alongside each other. Oh, the Kardashians, she's famous for nothing. And here's this girl that wants to go to space. Why don't people like her? And I was like, I don't know. Why don't you ask men that aren't following them? Because the majority of her followers are women. It's not us that are having this problem. We don't run news. We don't run the press. We aren't saying Kendall Jenner is the goddess of all women and we must worship her. It's just that people have preferences. And in this misogynistic world, men are upholding Kendall more than they're upholding the girl that wants to go to space. But also the girl that wants to go to space is fucking beautiful as well. She is stunning. So I'm like, if she looked like a troll or something else, no one would have posted this if she wasn't as beautiful as she was. And I think there's all these things come into play, don't they? And men people don't realize they're taking part in this shit. What do you say to people to try to make them more aware? I'll go to Grace first with that one.
Personally, I just hate the pitching anyone against anyone, because everyone has such a different walk of life, and like what they've done and what they've experienced compared to another person could be amazing or sad or anything. Like, it can't really be compared. So pitching a model from, you know, a high society background to someone who works for NASA is just pointless. Like, what do you gain from that comparison? Like, yeah, you can talk about the like narrative of how us as a society hold up the model, but you can talk about that without putting two women against each other. Why don't we have more female scientists in the news? But we don't have to do the comparison thing. We can just leave that out.
Yeah, exactly. And anything to add on that, Tavi?
You know, it, there are respectability politics in everything that happens, right? Within these marginalized groups, where it's like one woman is better than the other, and it's the way that they promote infighting, right? It's the way that women grow up thinking that if you're pretty, you must not have a personality, and if you're ugly, all you have to offer is your humor. Or if you're not conventionally attractive, I hate ugly. If you're not conventionally attractive, that's all you have to offer, which then pits us as young girls against each other, being like, well, that pretty girl must be mean, right? That girl who all the guys like, I don't have to like her because I offer a personality. She obviously never had to get one. And you grow up and you start realizing it's like, yeah, we're just all here with personalities and looks and being gorgeous, and we're fighting with each other over these standards that like you can't be both, or you can't have all these different sides to yourself and being dynamic. And I think we need to really address the root. Like, why aren't there more women in these positions? If you hold it in such high esteem, let's talk about the barriers that women face to getting to that point. That's one. But let's also try not to put down any other women in the process, because in this space is also how we get people devaluing sex workers, right? Because you don't respect them. So now we have sex workers being targeted and assaulted, and no one cares, marked as like inhuman deaths or no human involvement deaths that don't get investigated. Families never get closure because they don't think anybody cares about these women. And that's the point, right? Is if you're not respectable, your life doesn't matter. If you're not something, and that respect is a direct relation to what the patriarchy, to white supremacy, and where you fit within that. And so I don't know where men start to fix whatever that fucking shit is, because I don't know what's going on. Sorry, I know you guys are cussing, bleep it out, but
oh no, it's all right, it's fine. You're allowed to.
I know for women, I don't think that we need to be fighting with each other about literally anything. Like, we're sitting here thriving. And if you are a sex worker, if you're a bad bitch, keep doing your sex working bad bitch. And if you're out here going to space, bitch, bring me back some moon rocks. If you're all of the above, you're just a smart ass, badass bitch, I'm jealous. We're not fighting though. You know what I mean? Just help me get on your level. Otherwise, we have to do away with that who's respectable getting treated one way or another. Nope. Everybody is worthy of respect. Everybody is worthy of consideration and love. That's basic.
Yeah, absolutely. Preach. That is exactly what it is. And I think that is that respectability boundary is what makes trans women of color and trans Black women such a massive target as well.
Yep.
It's that thing of where if all this is shifting all the time, as opposed to there just being a baseline, don't be a dick. That's kind of, this is what we end up with. And this is why people can be at risk. And it is so difficult, again, like when any of these things happen to anyone. I mean, and they did a poll here in this country, and I can't remember the figure exactly. I should have done that before the podcast, but it is something insane. Like 96% of women in this country over a certain age have been sexually harassed in one way or another. And that is right from everyday sexism and nonsense right through to full sexual assault and rape. And that is literally everyone in this country. But then guys want to say, I don't know anyone that would do that. And it's like, hun, if you can throw a stone and hit 5 women that that's happened to, you best believe that you could turn around and blink and a bunch of your mates would have done something. But then it's weird how it's separated. This figure is so huge, but yet the number of men that think they know men that will do that is so slight. And Daniel Sloss talks about this. Yeah. And he's this Scottish comedian. He's actually bigger in America than he is there.
I'm just trying to think of his name because
he's so awesome. And at the end of one of his shows, he actually often at the end he does like social commentary. And at the end of one of his shows, he talks about the fact that one of his female friends, was raped by one of his male friends. And he takes the responsibility for that, because he said, he was like, really, I knew what this man was capable of. I knew.
Yeah.
And he was like, guys, we all know. And it's like, I can identify people that I know that I personally stay away from. And they are emboldened to say it online. So what are they doing when no one is watching? And I think that that's something, part of this conversation that men need to have when it's not all men. It's like, look, it's fine if it's not you, but guess what? It's going to be 5 of your friends. It's going to be at least 5 of your friends. And if you can start to identify and spot that, then you can actually help and you can actually do something. So that's kind of like a bigger conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah, but let's talk about the fact that I don't think these men know what sexual assault is. I mean, not really. They don't define sexual assault and sexual harassment the way we do. They brush a lot of that off. The only thing that they hold at this tippy top is this violent rape, right? Yeah. Stranger rape, this attacked on the street, brawled out, they don't, the date rapes they excuse. They tell us that we're mad we made a bad decision. I've heard that over and over again. You guys just regret what happened. They don't think that taking advantage of somebody while they're under the influence of drugs or alcohol is a problem. They don't see catcalling as a problem. We really need to educate them. Men need to learn to accept these things, but they're fighting against it, right? That's the defense of self, because then they would have to admit that they have sexually assaulted a woman. And then it's not all men. It's definitely all men, because they all have, sexual coercion. They don't understand that idea that a woman said no, because there are men out there literally preaching that sex isn't for women. And women will say no, and women like the chase. It's a very archaic view of when women weren't liberated in their sexuality, so they would play coy. And so men had to be more aggressive and more assertive, because a woman's never going to fully admit that she likes it. I'm sorry, it's 2021. If I want some dick, I will say it.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't need you to get the wheels to turn in to tell me what I want. I can tell you. And maybe that was like, great grandmothers couldn't be out in the streets saying when they were ready and when they're not ready, but here we are. And it's time that we move forward and teach your sons better as they grow up that, a woman will let you know when she's ready for that, and educate them, just like I said, on what is and is not sexual harassment and assault, so that we can actually get men on board who recognize it in their friends before they do something. Because this idea that you can go in, I watched a movie the other day. I'm sorry to get derailed. One of my favorite movies at Black Cinema, because I do a thing called Black Cinema Sundays with a friend of mine, because she's an interracial adoptee, so she missed out on a lot of the culture. Where we do a little re-education. It's fun for us. We love it. One of the movies is called The Wood, and I loved it. Oh
my God, I haven't seen that for ages.
Right? Yeah. It's so good. But there's a game in that movie where the boys bet $1 that they could run up and touch this girl's booty.
Yeah.
They were doing this to girls around the thing. And I remember this growing up, even for myself, guys thinking it's so funny to go and snap bra straps and touch butts when you're growing. This is middle school, right? This is what they're doing. How come you're not having that conversation about not invading a girl's space like that? Because if we're going to say not all men, it's they weren't men then, they were boys. But this is where it starts. This idea that they have the right to go in and invade women's spaces. I don't remember as a little girl running around trying to touch men's junk. I don't think that was something I did.
I
didn't make a game of that with the shit that I used to do.
No, but I used to do it. But I did it though because it was a counter to the fact that guys were doing it in school. So I used to do it because I was like, you don't like it, do you? No, and then it turned to every time I found out a guy did it, to someone else, I would go and do that.
Target.
Yeah. I'd be like, that's it. They're in my sights now. And I'm going to go and punch him in the dick and then see how they feel about it.
Yeah. But if we teach men growing up, or teach the boys growing up, that women are more than just these objects to be played with, then we might get a little bit of a different response with the next generations coming up. Let's teach them that it's not okay to bet on virginity, who can land a girl, who can get that, because now you're putting this extra layer, right? And what we know about men and their pride and egos, you're bruised and I didn't even do anything to you, but you're thinking about your friends, and you told your friends you had me in the bag. So my no is leaving your ears in favor of what? Your ego now. And that's why you're pushing on. That's why you're pressing into me more than anything else. And some people are like, well, I didn't do that for power. No, you did it for them, for yourself, right? Yeah. You did it because it didn't matter what I said, because you decided before you got here that I belong to you.
Yeah.
It's a problem. I can't, they need to do better.
And it's so wild. And it's that thing when I talked about that guy that was married, he has, over the past, I'd say 10 years, he has asked me out so many times, and I don't know how many times I have to say no. And it's like, I think for so long, I think we are also conditioned to be way more polite to guys because you don't know where that's going to go as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I think guys are starting to learn now from this. It's like, well, actually, oh, they were polite to me. Yeah, because I didn't know you were going to punch me in the face, hun. Like, because I have been pushed over a table full of glasses because I said no to a guy that tried to kiss me. I had a boyfriend. We were having a conversation about his children. He tried to kiss me before going, and I was like, oh no, like literally move back. And he pushed me over a table. And I know someone like my friend's younger sister got punched in the face because she rejected a guy. And so that's why we're taught to be polite. And the reason why this time I was emboldened to say to the guy, I am not even attracted to you. You have to stop asking me. I've asked you so many times nicely. He has daughters. And I was like, mate, you have daughters. They're going to put up with this a million times. And this is what you're doing. And a meme came up the next day that I sent him. And I was like, we are polite for these reasons. And we just don't want to be anymore. Like, no is enough. And yeah, it's wild. And do you have anything to add to that, Grace, that kind of learning that, well, boys and men have to do?
The unlearning or the learning that they've already done?
Either. Yeah, I don't know, whichever.
I just think it is ego based, and I feel like anyone understands, like, when your ego is bruised, it sucks. But like, if you lot stopped being rapey, girls would mostly be a bit more flirty. And this is the sad cycle we're in. We don't want to talk to you. We don't like you. Like, women like are frightened of you because of the rapey ways. If there was less rapiness, you mostly would have better conversations. You'd mostly have more connections, and everyone would just have a better life. But because your ego couldn't take it that time, and then you've persisted and done whatever you've done, now people are frightened. And it creates a culture of fear. And like, everyone could just be getting laid, but no, because you don't act the way that you do. Disgusting.
Absolutely. So Tavi, so in your TikTok content, you often point out things like double standards, including one of my favorites. How about we stop saying women slept their way to the top and start saying that men withhold promotions for sexual favors? Yes. What kind of responses do you get from these type of posts? Because all of that really plays into everything we talked about.
So that one is probably my most viral content at this point. It's everywhere. With my credit and without my credit.
Oh, I've seen that.
I shared it, but I didn't know.
I get the responses I get from that are the not all men. And, well, she still slept her way to the top then, didn't she? Or it's on her. Why is she accepting that? Why is she doing that? And it's the mental gymnastics that people do to justify that women deserve certain treatment, right? They'll justify their misogyny by saying she was an active participant, she was a willing participant in this, instead of realizing that a person in a position of power, no matter the gender, right, is the person that you need to be holding responsible. Like, a woman can't sleep her way to the top unless somebody is helping her up. And the fact that she would need to, and a real interesting comment that I loved, because I agreed with it wholeheartedly, was even when women have tried to do that, they still haven't gotten to the top. So this weird idea that somehow most of these women are just being exploited, right? It's like, hey, I'm trying to do a thing. I'm trying to get to the next space because I know that I'm qualified. I know that you're overlooking me because I'm a woman. And still there are men who are doing this, sleeping with these girls and promising them things that never come. So it's insane to me that I get so much negative backlash on that. But I was also really happy about the response I got from a lot of people who were very supportive, who were like, yes, why didn't I think about this before? And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted the conversation to start. I wanted people to understand that that is a double standard in language, right? And that promotes misogyny. And people don't really think about language being as important as it is, but it's how you shape generations coming up that don't know anything. If they keep hearing you say she slept her way to the top, yeah, that's negative, all against women. And if you really wanted it to be equal, then you would be blaming both parties instead of acting like she just slept her way to the top of some imaginary ladder in which men were not involved at all.
Yeah, like she's doing it in isolation, just like, I've decided that this is what's happening today. Yeah.
And I'm going to just start sleeping with random men, and they're going to somehow make me CEO of a company. Didn't happen. Heck,
Yeah.
I hear it about our vice president right now, Vice President Harris. I hear it constantly. She slept her way to the top. And I'm just like,
The top
or
of
she
what?
had relationships with men who she was in her field with,
Yeah.
as most people do when you're at work. I'm sorry, we all know, yeah, don't have workplace relationships. Everybody's having workplace relationships. If I work in politics, chances are I'm going to date a senator. Like, what's happening here? And I don't believe that that's the situation obviously with Vice President Harris. I fully support, voted, loved it, but it's disgusting that they will do anything to discredit women and don't even think twice about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is this thing as well, you pointed on something really pivotal in that, language. So I studied journalism at uni, and one of the things I specialized in, despite how I speak now, because after a year of being in the Rona, I've forgotten how to speak. So I focused on critical discourse analysis and the kind of like just lexical meanings, like what is going on with language, what words mean. And my dissertation was actually on banal racism and the effects it's going to have on society. Guess what? I'm a prophet. Everything that I've written has actually happened. I'm so sorry, world. But it's the same with sexism. That banal sexism, every day these different things are said, the way that language is used, the way that certain, like the subjects of the language are kind of positioned as well, creates this, there's already this empathy gap that has been proven to happen between children, boys and girls, around between 10 to 13. And as we continue it and we continue to speak like that, that empathy gap grows and grows and grows. And for a lot of people, it dehumanizes women in men's eyes and in some women's eyes as well, because then we also fall into this kind of this area of respectability and what is morality, but who the fuck invented those and who set those parameters in the first place? And because we're not really, I suppose, interrogating the why they exist, how they come to be, and who set those things, we just kind of, I don't know, shuffling forward with all this nonsense and continuing to perpetuate it. And it can obviously make our lives, I mean, bearable but miserable, and it can put us in danger. I mean, I'm going to go to Grace for this one. What is the starting point of this issue, and how do we continue to illuminate it?
I think talking to our friends and talking to our family members, like I said, like me having that conversation with my mum, and just, like you have to just be uncomfortable, because actually you might turn out that you did sexually harass someone once, and that is horrible, and maybe you want to apologize for that, or maybe you want to go and talk to a therapist about it, whatever, but just don't do it again, because that's the problem. I feel like in society, because of the way that we are brought up and the things that we are fed, we all do things that we wish we hadn't done, and said things we wish we hadn't said when we haven't been educated. And that's the thing, you can go out, there's resources everywhere. Educate yourselves, get books, talk to your friends, talk to your female friends, talk to your mum, like, and talk to your children as well, because some people are lost. I feel like some men in our generation, they're lost, we just let them go, But like the younger generation, I feel like consent is actually being spoken about, and I don't feel like that was ever spoken about when we were growing up. Like that was not a topic. Like sex was barely spoken about, let alone consent. Like, you better not be consenting to have sex, are you mad? Like, it was just not done. So I just think, having open, like we're really lucky, like a couple of my friends, like they've got young children and they're already talking to their children about consent, especially their little boys. And like, it's just so lovely to see, because it's so easy, especially at that age. Like, they run around and grab your bum and they can be like, you have to ask to touch someone's bum. Do you know what I mean? Just that easy, you know, simple. Not even, there's not even sex in it. You're just not allowed to run around touching people's bums. That's it. Like, and or ask, and if that's cool, that's cool. Like, and it's just so easy. It's just so lovely to see those conversations happening in homes and with kids at that age. And I just really hope that we like continue and also bring it into schools. It's like those conversations, like that's when it starts. I feel that's when it breeds. And like, depending what school you went to, what friends you have, like, it breeds and then it gets out of hand. And you went from a little boy that grabs bums to a man that coerces women to sleep with him because he can't take no for an answer. And it's like, it's just breaking those patterns and really getting to the root of it. but I think it will take a long time and a lot of conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've all seen in different countries kind of starting to have these kind of chats and presenting it as kind of like government adverts, etc. I know Australia did one recently with milkshake, but it was pulled because it's like, consent isn't a metaphor, hun. You just need to say what it is. But then I know that they were emulating the consent as a cup of tea that was brought around here, but that had a time and a place, and it was great because it was like explaining to someone.
It was like introduction.
Absolute great introduction to consent at a time when it wasn't spoken about in the way that it is now.
And it was simple and to the point, and it was very good.
Really, really good. And I wish more people understood it. So Tavi, what do you think everyday sexism is doing to boys and girls? What do you think it's doing to boys and girls?
Oh, it's ruining them. It's ruining them. All sexism does is just perpetrating it for every generation coming up, right? So everyday sexism for little girls is making them feel ashamed of themselves. It's breeding fear. It's making them worried, stressed out, anxious, fat phobic. Okay, these little girls are growing up thinking that they live and breathe at the pleasure of men. They're there for that, and that's it. It's making them feel inferior. It's making them feel helpless, and it's putting a space between our boys and girls. It's drawing a line with them very early on, and everybody acts like that. Why does it have to be this battle of the sexes? It's like, because you keep making it that. When you say something like, if a little boy runs up, touches a girl's bum, and then you say, oh, boys will be boys, ha 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 ha, and you laugh it off, you have now taught that little girl that it is okay, that her body is not hers, right? That boys will be boys, and she has to accept that because she watched this little boy not get reprimanded, not be told what was correct. So now they go forward thinking that's okay and acceptable. And she's learned she's not allowed to be upset about that because boys will be boys. So how is it? It's just not helpful. That's all sexism is doing. It's breeding that and making it seem like it's the norm.
Absolutely. It's so, it's just so insipid, isn't it? And over to Grace, but I'll ask Tavi this as well. Will not all men still be around in 10 to 15 years, do you think?
Yeah, I do. I don't think it will be as big, and I think it will still be men of like our generation, but they'll be older and then above that again. But yeah, I think they'll have like a little insidious group. There would still be about, but a lot less of them, but maybe even like more hateful in their little pocket. That's how I sort of see it, like mostly less, but stronger in the group. But yeah,
I'm gonna be an optimist and say no. I want it to be gone. My heart wants not all men, very specifically, that phrase very specifically, to be gone. And you say 10 to 15 years, I think we can do it. I'm not saying that sexism, misogyny are going to be gone, but I really think that phrase will be dead in 10 to 15 years because we're going to educate them and we're going to show them that, one, it's a detraction and it's an unnecessary statement in itself, but also that it is a majority of men who are making women feel uncomfortable, whether you haven't actually assaulted, whether it was just harassment, you know what I mean? Or general inappropriateness. I keep trying to tell people this. It doesn't have to be harassment or assault to still be inappropriate. Because there is inappropriate conduct. There's anything that makes someone else feel uncomfortable in a situation because of who they are. I'm going to be an optimist. Yep. It's gone out.
Love it. And then Grace, so how can men be allies in 2021? What can men do right now going forward that, I don't know, takes us off our plate?
Just call it out, like quickly, like a band-aid, isn't it? It's the best way to do it. When you see and hear shit that ain't right, don't be like, let me just be like, oh, that's fucked up. Like, just cut it dead. Like, boom. Like, I've got nothing else to say about that. That was fucked up. Moving on. Like, if you want to have a further conversation, we can have a further conversation. But just so you know, I clocked that and that's not okay. And then maybe I'll talk to you later when we're in a less potentially public or whatever. But that was seen, that was heard. we'll talk to you about that. I think that would be really helpful. And just like being strong with it, being like acting like that is so wrong. I can't even believe you said it in front of me. Like, don't do that. And just carrying on with that narrative. And yeah, like even things like I posted your quote about stop saying women sleep their way to the top. And I had someone, actually, the only person I've had in this like sort of period that we've had in London, they were just like, well, it's both of their fault, surely. And I was like, I literally just said, who has the power? Please explain it to me. And they just never replied because they just had nothing to say. And it would have been nice if a man was just came in, especially from like my industry, and was just like, well, actually, shut up. I like gave them some facts instead of like it always having to be a woman or, you know, whoever to just constantly be fighting the fight. And it's just like, actually, it would be just nice to be surrounded and supported through that sometimes.
Yeah. And that you made a good point as well there about it's always like it's women that have to say it, because even when that conversation was very much online and there were people citing like the UN figures about victims of, you know, female victims of violence, etc., and then men was like, where did you get these figures from? I've looked it up and I didn't see this, as opposed to thinking, my God, this is alarmingly high. Oh my gosh, this is awful. Instead of them even getting to that place of being upset, they were already so defensive and they already had to shut it down. They were so committed to not believing what everybody is saying to them. It's disturbing. It's a sickness. It's psychosis. Like it's insane, isn't it?
It's just like pulling the wool over your own eyes. It's like, is it just so horrific that they can't cope with it? Like, I wonder that, like, they just cannot take that in, because again, then they'll have to reflect on their friends, things they've said, and they'll go down the rabbit hole, and you know, God knows where that rabbit hole will take them. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's just too much for a lot of people. Absolutely.
They prefer the delusion. They prefer living in that. I mean, dissonance, it's deadly, right? Yes. We have to separate. And I mean, here's the thing. We already know that our psyche does this to protect us, right? Yeah. That we don't want it, but you have to push past. At a certain point, it can't be la, 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 it's not happening. I don't hear this. I don't see this. I don't recognize that. It's people are telling you this. They're saying it. People are dying. People are being attacked. Like, what? How are you still in the dark? You're not. This is willful at the point, right? We're making an effort to be blind to the truth. And it's disgusting. So I hope people fucking get it together.
Absolutely. And so to round this all off, I'm now going to ask both of you, and we'll go to Tavi first, then Grace. What would you say to someone who says, hashtag, not all men?
Go away.
Love it. Love it. And Grace?
Fuck up, you dickhead.
Amazing. Amazing. But yeah, thank you both so much for joining me. Go to Grace first. Where can you be found online?
I can be found on Instagram at Hey It's Grace Gray. Brilliant.
And Tavi, where can we find you online?
You can find me at any Wendy's near you, 10 toes on the pavement, hanging, banging, and slanging. But most notably on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Tavi Talks Trash.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And I hope you have an amazing day that is unencumbered by men being dicks.
It's going to be cumbered, but thanks, girl.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to Speak On. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, co-workers, strangers in the street. To find out more about us, including our upcoming events, head over to Instagram, instagram.com/speakon_. Bye!